Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Desi. We are from Bramley Baths. I'm Jennie Willetts, and let me just bring the slide up. That is Bramley Baths. So we are an Edwardian, last remaining Edwardian bathhouse in Leeds, and we are fully functioning. Oh, there we are. That's me and David, in case you were any confusion. So we are the last remaining Edwardian bathhouse in Leeds. We offer full service provision, so we do swimming lessons, we offer swimming as just for general swimming, there's fitness classes, there's a fully equipped gym as well, which is of the best quality equipment as well. So yeah, it's just a wonderful, wonderful place to be, and I always think I'm really, really privileged to be able to work there because it is just a wonderful service to offer. So the service provision that we offer is highly, highly trusted by our local partners and organisations. Lots of local charities and other local organisations use us as service providers because we are trusted within our community. Our community uses on a regular basis for, as we've already established, a really, really broad variety of services. We've got over 1,500 people a week learning to swim. That's right from babies through to adults with school lessons and everything in between. And we've got fitness classes as well, again, supported by the community as a service. Yeah, so we'll move on to the next little bit. So I'm here really to talk about two of the projects that we have recently come to fruition, if you like. So our first one I'll talk about is our CEV project. CEV stands for Clinically Extremely Vulnerable. So throughout the pandemic, there were obviously people that were told to shield throughout that time. So they weren't able to go out, they weren't able to socialise, they were told very much to stay indoors, and because they were just that clinically extremely vulnerable. So our project came at the end of that 2021, where they were then allowed to leave the house and allowed to come out and socialise. Obviously, some people were really, really eager to sort of integrate back into society. Some weren't. Some were really not ready because they were really, really frightened. So the project aim was to really listen to everybody's individual story. So it wasn't really about us telling them what they thought, what we thought would really benefit them, and we might be aware of their medical condition and we might think that would really work for them. But actually it was about really, really listening to what they wanted and really getting to know them. So in the initial stages, we invited them to come to the baths, or we invited to speak to them over the phone, just to get a real sense of it. And I think I was the one that they initially spoke to, and it was that real in-depth listening that really contributed to their health and their well-being, and just really getting to grips with what they wanted, and not, again, trying not to tell them what they wanted. Once we'd established what they wanted, i.e. was it just a little bit of help getting back into exercise, were they not ready to integrate into a class, do they need one-to-one support, that kind of thing, we would facilitate that at their pace, whatever they wanted. We even had spaces within the pool where they could have the pool to themselves, which was obviously a real treat for anyone, but if we could facilitate that, we would do. So we offer them 5 free funded sessions, one-to-one basis if they require that, or also just within if they were ready again, into a general swim. Some of the results were unbelievable. So out of the whole, the amount of people that came, about 70% of those people continued to exercise after that initial what's the word I'm looking for? Initial meeting, shall we say? Triage, yes. So yeah, that was really wonderful, and it was really good to see from that initial meeting when some people were physically almost within themselves. It was really, 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 yeah. It just, they've been shielding for 2 years. They couldn't leave the house, so we were able to do that because we were lucky that our health allowed that. So to see them go from physically being like this to sitting upright in our final meeting, and for them to describe it as they felt like they'd won the lottery, was unbelievable. Like, we'd literally given them 5 sessions and a membership for 2 months, and then it was up to them to continue their journey. And it was wonderful to see how we could just really help that one individual person just to thrive within that, if you like. Our second project was called the Big Bramley Apple, and that was more of a collaborative effort between ourselves, another local charity called Bramley Elderly Action, and the local GP surgery, Bramley Health and Wellbeing Centre. And initially, the GPs would identify people that would benefit from healthy activities and just social activities as well. So they would send out a letter that was headed with the NHS So they knew it would come from their doctor, so it's definitely going to be really good for them to attend our sessions at the bath. And we could offer them a free swim or a free gentle exercise with a social element after as well. That project saw over 100 participants come along. We also took out the barrier of transport. We offer people transport literally from their door to the bath, which was really useful. Because as we know, people that might struggle with mobility might also struggle to get on a bus, or they get a taxi would be really expensive. So yeah, being able to offer the transport element was a really massive part of that project as well. Again, wonderful, wonderful outcomes. We had a gentleman that came that had recently lost his wife. And initially he was very much, I do not want to go to these socials. I don't need I'll just come for exercise, in a very broad Yorkshire accent. But he actually said, "Oh, go on then. I'll stay for a cup of tea, but I'm not staying long." That kind of thing. I'll have a biscuit and go out. Then eventually, the biscuits were a pull-in there. But after they've done gentle exercise, but we don't talk about that. So, but yeah, he eventually really came around to that idea, and he ended up staying for the socials, and he really made new friends groups, and he still comes to the swim sessions. So again, like somebody just said, which is brilliant. I love that. It was the group that they didn't know they needed, and I thought that was a brilliant quote. Well done, very good. So as far as social prescribing and the pathways to access, both these were very much endorsed by the NHS as being a trusted provider of the services that we do. They were able to refer into the projects that we do, knowing full well that we would deliver that provision, because we are an excellent provider of the services that we do, and we do pride ourselves in that. We've got an excellent staff team with experts delivering day in, day out, and it is really a wonderful, wonderful place to be. So on that note, I'm going to pass over to our wonderful CEO, David. Thank you very much.
Thank you for us being invited, Bessie, to speak at this event. A few key things. With the Big Bramley Apple, we did measure on the Edinburgh and Warwick scale about mental well-being. And essentially, we had one lady who came along who had terminal cancer, lung cancer, and she measured sort of 28 out of 33. And we did a happiness score. Bramley Elder Action have developed a happiness score of 1 to 10, and she was about 6. So after the sort of 10, 12-week intervention, she became fitter, healthier. She went up to 32 out of the 33, and she went up onto 8 out of 10. She's still got terminal cancer, but her whole outlook on life is fantastic. The funding ended on the Big Bramley Apple. We're doing evaluation and things. But in essence, we kept a swimming session on, which last week there were 33 people coming along that we're doing for, instead of our normal £5.50, £6, it was £3.50. But the co-op have subsidised it, so we can keep it at that for the next year. So I just want to talk a little bit about redistribution of the funds. You know, the economic climate we're in, it doesn't matter if Labour get in, there's still going to be no money. NHS will go bust in the next 3 to 5 years if the 45 to 90-year-olds don't start doing something about self-care and looking after themselves. The speeches and presentations we've received the last couple of days are precious, but one thing worries me when people say, we're doing it for nothing. No, you may be getting a grant from culture or heritage or whichever sphere of funding. The government or the new government will be raiding those pots. Those pots will diminish. If anybody thinks they're going to be bigger, they're not. If they're going to sustain the same level, they're not. So we're a social enterprise. We came out of the council in 2013. The Baths was losing £300,000 a year. We've now turned it into making circa £200,000 a year surplus. We call it surplus for purpose, not profit. Profit isn't the rude word in the voluntary sector, charitable sector, which most of us are in. The luxury of not being able to charge will not be there in the future. The difficulty with projects where they were free because you had a grant, it is more difficult. I've been in the sector for 18 years now to start putting a charge in after that. So what my sort of word of advice is, start with 50p per session at least, and then you can incrementally move it up over a period. But the hook of the heritage, the building we've got is superb. It's a real sort of uplifting. You go in the building, you see the stained glass windows, sun coming through the lantern. It's just a great place. We've done stuff like Leeds Light Night, where we had 450 new visitors, where we had the pool full of smoke. There were lights everywhere. We had 10 lifeguards on instead of the 2 normally. But in essence, there was a Danish artist on the balcony orchestrating a live picture, but it was like the people in the pool were part of the picture. You know, it's sort of a really, really good. There are some things on our website if you want to have a look at that. The other thing that we've done is create an impact report, which people who are going to be funded in the future have got to prove their worth. You know, there's a lot of people, economic, social sort of value advisors in the room and things. Prove your worth, because NHS will say, oh, it's non-clinical, it's people doing good, yeah, great, but it's not proven clinically. A lot of the things in the NHS are not proven clinically either, but that doesn't matter because they're at the top of the pecking order for the money. Part of realising community assets 16-17 we did with the CCGs, it caused the primary care networks and all the new sort of ICBs and things, and where the money's going to distribute from. What we want is a movement for this sector where recurrent funding happens and a prescription is written out for people to come and do some things in the heritage. Some of the wonderful things that have been described today. But if we're also saying we're part funding it, then that's a powerful argument to the NHS and to other people. In Bradford, we did get the £800,000 that went to GPs when 5 years previous, the GPs were almost spitting in my face saying, you're not touching our budget. £800,000 came across to the voluntary sector. And the GPs were getting about 100,000 value because they had what you call failure demand, because they're trying to get people to go 2 buses to go to a diabetic nurse in a place that they didn't live. Then the VCS got in, did it on a local basis. They got £3 million worth of value. They did prevention and got people who are going to be diabetics in the future started to attack it from a prevention point of view and not trying to cure things, which is far more expensive. So other things about the bath, we are called the friendliest baths in the country. I think we're the friendliest baths in the world. Everybody's got a smile on the face when you walk into the place. If you're in Yorkshire anytime, please do come along and have a swim. We did another thing on the solstice. We had a 5:30 swim when the sun came up and things, and that was really well attended. You know, because the whole sort of place is good for your mental health. We got quoted in the Rutledge Handbook of Intercultural Mediation, and that speaks for itself there. The sort of emotional tie and the commitment to the space, and that echoes with some of the archaeological projects, some of the house projects and things we've heard in the last 2 days. That really does resonate with people. You know, we've got a yoga instructor who doesn't deliver at the baths, but she comes along twice a week because it sets her back into the mode for delivering her yoga and stuff like that. So, you know, we've got a real sort of jewel in the crown. It's a community asset. It's a community hub. It's doing things in the community that 3,500 people a week are benefiting, plus more. We've just gone through the EOI stage of Heritage Lottery because we've got to make a surplus because we've got to spend about £3 million on the building in the next 10 years. We've now been accepted for the development stage. So that is fantastic. So thank you for listening.